Today we are comparing two of my favorite cities in the world, Bangkok, Thailand, and Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This is one of my most requested videos to make. I've gotten tons of comments and DMs telling me just make a direct comparison between the two. As you know, I've spent several months in both places at this point. I've spent a little bit more time in Thailand overall, but yeah, I've spent enough time in both, I think, to have a unique perspective here and to offer you something, offer you a little bit of information. So I'm currently in Bangkok. I've just spent the past few months in Malaysia, mostly in Kuala Lumpur. I want to talk about which one is my favorite, which one is better. You're going to find out in this video. Make sure you watch to the end to get all the answers. So let's just get right into the cost of living first, because that is always number one on everybody's mind. Both are quite affordable. For major cities and for what they are rather affordable. And likewise, both countries have much more affordable places you can live. But if you want to live in a big city, you know, it's going to be a little bit more pricey in general. That's just how it goes. Now, I'd say they're relatively similar overall when it comes to costs. But let's break it down a little bit. Accommodations. Thailand is known for having well-priced accommodations and getting good value for your accommodation. It's just what it's known for. It's just how it's always been. But things are getting more expensive. The place is getting so popular, especially Bangkok, that yeah, like in the city center, it's pricing people out. It's getting a little bit less affordable. And in Kuala Lumpur, I often find you can get a unit in the city center at a more reasonable price. If you're comparing like the center hotspots of Thailand, of Bangkok, versus the hotspots in the center of Kuala Lumpur, yeah, you can spend a little bit less money in Kuala Lumpur. Now, I'd say when it comes to the quality of the Airbnb, of the condo, of the apartment, typically Thailand takes the cake. Thailand usually is the winner in that front. It's just how it's going to be. You know, there's so many condos here and they're kept pretty well. The quality is typically quite high. That I have not found another country that can match up in that regard. I really have not. I would say I have problems a little bit renting Airbnbs when I'm in Kuala Lumpur if I try and go for the more budget options. If I try and get stuff for $20 US a night, you know, like $140 a week for an accommodation, I will end up having there's some type of issue, you know. Either the location is not ideal, or you know, it's dirty, you know, it's not cleaned well, there's a smell coming from it, something like that. Likewise, if you spend a similar amount here, you're not going to find something in the city center. You know, you're not going to get something for that price. So you have to kind of up your budget a little bit if you want to be in a good spot in Bangkok, but you end up with a nice clean unit. You end up with good amenities, a good location near the train, and so I'd say money for money, typically you get a little more here, but you're not going to find something in general in one of those prime locations for the type of prices you can spend in Kuala Lumpur. So if you are really on a budget, I think you can get something in a better area, a walkable area, close to the train, close to good food. In Kuala Lumpur, I think it's a better budget option. If budget is not as much of a concern, I think that Bangkok actually offers better accommodations in general. Higher quality and less problems is what I've noticed, especially with like Airbnb. That's been my experience so far. Now, when you factor in the costs of everything else, in my experience, I end up spending about the same. Because you can actually get food a little bit cheaper in Thailand, whether you're cooking for yourself or you are going out and getting street food, it's just a little bit more affordable in that regard. You can go out and eat street food for $3 and have a full plate of food here. It's a little bit harder to do that in Malaysia, especially in Kuala Lumpur. It's a little bit, just costs a little bit more for quality food. But overall, when I factor in my monthly cost in Bangkok or my monthly cost in Kuala Lumpur, it's almost identical. I spend pretty much the same. Now, your lifestyle can change a lot being in one versus the other. And so, yeah, if you're drinking, if you're going out and partying, then costs can go up in either place. So, yeah, drinking is not cheap in Kuala Lumpur. But likewise, in Bangkok, especially in the hotspots, especially in the clubs, stuff like this, I know drinking is not cheap at all either. And so both of those are actually similar to Western prices with drinking and partying. Whoa. So yeah, for me, I don't live a lifestyle of like nightlife and drinking at all. So yeah, my view is from a standpoint of not really going out too much. And in that regard, it's similar, very much similar between the two countries, between the two big cities. I think the next most important thing to compare would be the food. Both countries have world-class food and are kind of well known for their food, for their cuisines. Thailand, Thai food, of course, and in Malaysia, Malaysian food. So which one is actually better? Now, that, of course, that's hard to say because people have a preference with food. Now, they're a little bit different, okay? So here in Bangkok, there's a huge street food culture. You find street food on every single street, on every corner. It's just how it goes. Big markets full of street food. That's kind of the way in Thailand, especially in Bangkok. But it is pretty much all Thai food. And so if you don't like Thai food, then of course there are other options here. But I think you would be missing out on a lot. And it would leave something to be desired then, the food here in Bangkok. And you would be eating a lot of Western food. And you'd be spending a good amount of money for it. In Malaysia, you have, yeah, mostly Malaysian food. But Malaysian food is quite diverse. It's essentially, think of Indian food, think of Chinese food, think of various fusions of different cuisines thrown together. That's sort of what you get in Malaysia. You have a bigger mix of many different dishes to choose from. For me, I prefer Malaysian food. I've always been very into Indian style food, and so I think naturally Malaysian food suits me better. Now, Thai food is a lot spicier. It's much, much spicier than Malaysian food in general. So if you do come to Thailand and you eat the food and it's very spicy, and then you go to Kuala Lumpur and you eat food there, they will tell you, oh, this is very spicy, but it will not feel spicy to you, or it will not feel quite the same as food here in Bangkok. It's a whole different spiciness scale. It's like, it's barely comparable, I will say that. Some of the food here in Thailand is, you know, if you're not ready for it, it's hard to even eat it. You will take one bite and you will be like, oh my God, you know. I think that they don't typically like that in Malaysia. They want to keep it a little bit more subtle, a little bit less overpowering to the dish. I like very spicy food, so not every single time I eat, but I enjoy it. And you can find very spicy food in Malaysia if you really seek it out. If you really ask them to make it very spicy, it's possible. So now the thing is, you can find good Thai food in Malaysia. There is plenty of Thai food places in Malaysia to get authentic Thai food. And so you end up with a lot of Malaysian food, but also having Thai food and Japanese food and Korean food. So you have everything in Malaysia. I think here in Thailand, especially in Bangkok, you have a good mix. There is good access to all of these different cuisines. You know, you have Japanese, Korean food as well here, Chinese food. But you're not really getting Malaysian food here in Thailand. You have to really seek it out. You know, it's not easy to find. Whereas Thai food is easy to find in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. So, yeah, I think for that reason alone, I kind of give the upper hand to Malaysia. I think there is more options. And if you are a Thai food lover, you still get the Thai food there. I've had some very good Thai food in Malaysia, so yeah, I can't say the same about Thailand. You know, I've even now looked for Malaysian food after leaving and kind of craving it. And it's not so easy to find, you know. There are a few scattered spots that have like Malaysian dishes, but it just doesn't look quite the same. It's not the same. Now, if you love street food, if you love going to these night markets and having tons of options, and if you don't have any food allergies like I do and you can just eat whatever, I think Thailand has a lot to offer. I think Bangkok will fulfill all your food fantasies at that point. Both are actually incredible places for food. Again, it's almost more of a preference, but for the fact that you can get good Thai food in Malaysia and it's all over Kuala Lumpur, I have to give it the upper hand. I mean, it just kind of has everything. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is quite big, and that is the language, communication. As you may or may not know, in Malaysia, English is the second language. Everybody speaks English. Malaysians speak English. Thai people, on the other hand, typically do not speak much English. You will find that they have a baseline level of English here in Bangkok, more than in other parts of Thailand, so that's a plus. And like taxi drivers, hotel workers, things like that, there's slightly higher proficiency in English. But it's still, even for those types of workers, it doesn't match the level of English you get in Malaysia for even the average person. Actually, the average English level for Malaysians it's just very high. It's like you're speaking to an English native almost. Genuinely, that's how it feels. Now, Kuala Lumpur does have a big issue with foreign immigrants coming in and working and staying in various parts of the city. Can be very filled with non-Malaysians, you know, Bangladeshis, Indonesians, Burmese. And so those folks do not speak such good English. They really do not. It's a night and day difference. But the majority of the people you're interacting with should be Malaysian people, depending which neighborhood you stay in. As long as you're not staying in one of these neighborhoods that happens to be composed of a lot of immigrants. Malaysia as a whole and Kuala Lumpur as a whole is very English speaking. And so, yeah, just like meeting people on a regular basis and having a good conversation becomes a lot more possible in Malaysia. You can have a lot more in-depth discussion. In Thailand, it tends to be a more basic conversation. You know, it tends to be more small talk, simply because, yeah, there's a lack of understanding of what you're saying. If you try and really speak quickly or really get into detail, a lot of it gets lost in the mix, and Thai people will not understand what you're saying. It almost feels like if you're gonna be here long term, it feels like I should learn Thai. It feels like I'm gonna be missing out on this experience a bit if I don't learn Thai. That's how it feels. Whereas in Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia, it doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like, oh, I could live here for the rest of my life and only speak English and have no problems whatsoever, you know? And the people will tell me, even in the comments, like, yeah, it's no problem to speak English. Like, we don't care if you speak Malay. Of course, it would be cool. People would still find it pretty interesting and they would love to connect with you in Malay if you do speak Malay, but you don't have to. It's not something like, they're not expecting that of anybody. And they're happy to speak English. They really are. So when it comes to language, communication, I mean, sorry folks, it's so hot out here. I'm so thirsty right now. makes me think, okay, maybe let's talk about weather next. But yeah, it is. Yeah, it's very nice in Malaysia. It's very refreshing to be able to speak to people and have serious conversations and get to know somebody on like a more personal level. You know, it makes it easier to me to really make friends with the locals in a real way, not just acquaintances, but get close to somebody much quicker. You know, not need to pull out Google Translate on a regular basis. So yeah, there's almost no comparison. I mean, if you let's say haven't traveled that much, if you're like relatively new to moving around or going into another country, like Malaysia is very easy. It makes it very easy for you to just go in there and kind of connect very quickly, kind of adapt very quickly to the place. Because everyone already speaks our language, you know. For us English natives, it's like, it's amazing. It's a really refreshing thing, and that's why my YouTube videos do so well in Malaysia. It's like everyone understands what I'm saying. People can connect more easily with my videos, and that's because of the English-speaking nature of the country. So, huge win to Malaysia on the communication front for sure. Let's talk about the weather next. Weather's a big one, a big reason most people will move maybe to a country or choose their destination for traveling is like, you know, how's the weather going to be, right? And now both of these countries are very similar. They're both like very hot and humid climates. Very much, very much. If you've not been to Southeast Asia, you don't know what it feels like. It's a whole different thing. Maybe it doesn't compare to some places like the Middle East. But it's intense, folks. It's intense. However, it's not too much different between the two. They have slightly different seasons and, you know, different times of the year. It might be raining versus the other. But they both have periods of time in the year where it rains heavily. And they both have periods of times in the year where it's slightly more cool or more humid. But in my experience, it's both very similar. You know, no matter what, I'm going outside and I'm sweating profusely. That's just how it goes. The humidity hits you like a truck when you step outside. That's what it is. You're going to be avoiding the sun for the hottest portion of the day in either place. People typically don't like to stay outside between, I would almost say like 11 a.m. or noon until, you know, 3 or 4 p.m. Especially in Malaysia, I think like the parks, for example, are absolutely empty between this time. Absolutely empty. Hey. In Thailand, they tend to be a little bit more busy because there's more foreigners here, more Westerners, and we tend to like the sun more. We tend to just go out in the sun because we are used to growing up without it in winters. It's like we get as much sun as we can when we see it. So yeah, for that reason, there is more people out and about in the daytime, in the sunlight here in Bangkok. There's just so many more foreigners. There's so many more Western foreigners living here and traveling here on a regular basis. Yeah, I would say overall, similar weather. I couldn't honestly pick one being better or worse than the other. So some people don't like to come to Thailand, for example, when it's like rainy season, also known as the low season, you know, meaning a lot less people coming, a lot less tourists traveling here. But the upsides to coming in a more low season is that it's more affordable and it's not as crazy busy. So yeah, there's ups and downs to either one. And I think even during the hot season, during the dry season, it can just as easily rain as well. So yeah, it's a gamble. It's always a gamble coming to either country. I think Thailand, it tends to rain for longer periods of time. I find that in Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur, typically it's raining for 1 hour, then it's done, you know, maybe an hour and a half, and that's it for the whole day. There's exceptions, of course, but that's how it goes most days. Now, I was told that it's raining every day in Bangkok right now, and since I arrived a few days ago, it has not rained at all. So yeah, so you never know. It's low season now, it's rainy season here, but it's just luck of the draw. You never know what's going to happen. But I will tell you, it will be hot. It will definitely be hot. You know, I don't wear pants. I wear shorts every day. I'd say most of the locals in both places tend to wear pants. You'll see them wearing long sleeves, which to me is wild. I would say pack your summer clothes and expect to wear them every single day in either one of these countries. The next one is a big one. That is cleanliness and pollution in the city. Now, I think it's almost obvious who's the winner, which one is more clean and less polluted, and that is Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Okay, I would say Thailand, especially Bangkok, is known for being polluted. It has a reputation. You know, people tend to wear masks here, even having nothing to do with the pandemic. You know, it's simply because of the pollution. And sometimes people wear masks year-round because of that, especially if they're driving, especially if they're on a motorbike. As you can probably see right now behind me, there is just so many cars and so many bikes on the road. Especially at peak times, it can get very congested and crazy. Now, Kuala Lumpur can get congested, it can get busy as well, but not in the same way, not to the same level. And there's just not as many motorbikes in Kuala Lumpur. And so, yeah, the pollution levels can get quite high in Bangkok. Right now, it's actually really okay. It's not bad at all. Again, it can just be kind of hit or miss. You know, if you're coming here for a trip or something, or whatever it is, you're coming to stay for 1 month or 2 months, yeah, you never really know. The pollution can come out of nowhere, and the AQI, the air quality index, that number can get high. Thankfully, yeah, it's okay right now, but yeah, on the contrast in Kuala Lumpur, it pretty much stays rather low. You know, they also don't really burn garbage. They don't really burn crops in the city. They have laws preventing people from burning their garbage. Now, in Bangkok, people still very old school, very, they like to burn plastic. They like to burn trash. And that puts fumes in the air, There's whole crop fields that get burned down, especially in the north. That's why Chiang Mai is known as having the worst pollution and like very heavy burning seasons. But in general, the cleanliness in Bangkok on the streets, you know, garbage as well, the smells you'll get can be intense, you know, and so yeah, Malaysia wins on this one, and Malaysia wins very easily. That's not to say that Malaysia doesn't have parts that are very dirty. I recently was like more on the outskirts in the north of Malaysia, close to the Thai border. And in Malaysia, it was very dirty. The infrastructure was bad. But this was like right on the Malaysian side of the border, you know. But it was a different district, you know. It's very different than Kuala Lumpur. And so then I got over to the Thai side. I crossed to the Thai side of the border to a town called Sungai Kolok. It's at the very south of Thailand. And immediately the infrastructure was much better. It was very clean. And it was just like a night and day difference, you know. And it was surprising to me because Kuala Lumpur is so clean. In general, it's pretty clean. Whereas Thailand, it's dirty. You find a lot of stuff like this, like constantly everywhere. Stuff is being worked on. There's dirt on the sidewalks and broken sidewalks, which happens in Kuala Lumpur as well, but it's much more of an issue in Bangkok. And like the actual air pollution, of course, yeah, it's just much worse in Bangkok. If you do have real issues like with your lungs, or you know, if you're much older, if you're retiring, I think a lot of people, even who love the city, they tend to choose not to retire in Bangkok because of the pollution, because of the dirt and the pollution. I mean, you will get a lot of stuff like this, you know, just sort of a lot of garbage in various parts of the city that just gets kind of put somewhere, you know, and just kind of sits there. Yeah, and of course, Kuala Lumpur has this too, but it's a widespread issue in Bangkok. If you're serious about clean air and you're serious about cleanliness in general, yeah, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur is definitely a little more suitable for you. It's just not as crazy, not as dirty. All right, let's talk a little bit about the nightlife. Talk about the nightlife. As everyone knows, Thailand, Bangkok is quite a hot spot for the nightlife. People will come here to party, people of all shapes and sizes, you know, backpackers, young backpackers come here staying in hostels, all partying together. You have a lot of older folks coming here who still like to drink, who still very much hit the bars. You know, sometimes from 10 in the morning, yeah, you will see people in the bars. It's just how it goes, depending on the area, of course, because this is important to know. You know, there are some, it's not so black and white. I very much don't want people to think that Thailand is only a place for nightlife, is only a place for drinks and women. It's simply not. And you know, a lot of my Malaysian audience tends to group Thailand into just one little box, and act like everybody who is the same here, or everyone who visits is the same. And that's very much not the case, you know. But if you are looking for nightlife, if you do like to drink, or you do like to go out and meet women, you know, women of the night, or whatever it is, I mean, yeah, Bangkok has that. Bangkok very much has that. Now, does Malaysia have that as well? Yes it does. Kuala Lumpur has that as well. But it's very much something you will have to seek out. You will have to go to a specific part of the city. You will have to, I don't know. You will really have to seek it out. I don't really know. And so it just goes to show, I spent time in Bangkok, and just by walking around the city and by watching YouTube vlogs, I know very quickly what areas to go to for those things. And it's just out there in the open, you know. Yeah, there's parts of town that don't really have any bars, and then there's parts of town that it's the whole street is bars and cannabis shops, you know. So yeah, nightlife, Bangkok takes the cake. I will say Malaysia, it's even illegal to drink in a lot of areas, and you know, there's like specifically designated places to drink in Kuala Lumpur that it's actually legal. You know, inside the bar, you know, it can be outside, but at a table from the restaurant, there's definitely no sort of public drinking otherwise. Whereas in Bangkok, you can very much walk around with a beer from place to place with no problems, you know. I think if you like that kind of free-spirited party vibe, or that free-spirited kind of being able to do what you want to do more so without any problems, Bangkok is the place for you. Now, like I said, it's not only a party town, and it's very, very family friendly as well. The actual like party nightlife districts and areas are such a small percentage of this entire city, like a small percentage, probably like 3% of the whole city, you know. It's confined to some small areas, but those are the areas that get talked about the most and that kind of popularized Bangkok, I will say. But since more people started to come here, since Russians started to come here, you know, many Russians with their families and couples, huge Chinese demographic here, which, yeah, sometimes parties, but tends to also come in couples or families, and just sort of avoid the nightlife a bit, and they focus more on the food, and like the sightseeing and different tourist attractions, you know. So yeah, it's not a black and white thing, like, oh, I don't like nightlife, I'm going to go to Malaysia, or I like nightlife, I'm going to go to Bangkok. I think both places have both things. So both places can give you what you want, right? That's really what I found. But if nightlife is like a priority for you, if you want access to more parties, a bigger social scene for nightlife, then you should come to Bangkok. You're going to have a better time. And if you want to really avoid all that, if you really don't even want to think about it, and you like the idea of living in a more wholesome place, a place where people, the locals just aren't too into partying in general, Kuala Lumpur might be a better fit for you. Okay, another big one is public transportation. Okay, finally got off of the busy, loud streets. Oh man, all right, next up, transportation, public transportation. A big thing for anybody choosing to live in the city, probably will not have a vehicle. Now, I'd say both are world-class in transportation. Both are very good. Both have really powerful train systems that connect the entire city. And both are quite affordable as well. The Bangkok train system can be a little bit more pricey at the end of the day than Malaysia. I find that typically when I'm taking the train in Kuala Lumpur, it'll cost me around 50 cents, 40 cents to 60 cents US. Whereas when I'm taking the train here in Bangkok, it can end up costing me closer to $1 oftentimes, maybe 80 cents, something like that. It does tend to be like close to 2 times the amount for the train. Now it's quick, and it's, the train comes quickly, it gets to your destination pretty quickly, it's well connected, but it can add up. I find it can definitely add up in Bangkok, where I more actually have to think about it in my budget. In Kuala Lumpur, it's almost so affordable that I don't even really think too much about it. It's just like, oh, I need to take the train here. Okay, yeah, no problem. And I don't buy a card, like a long-term train pass, which is available in both places. So I'm speaking more from buying like single use, just taking it here and there sometimes. I don't really think about it too much in Kuala Lumpur. It just costs so little. And so, it's very popular amongst locals in both places to get around by train. I do prefer the train system in Kuala Lumpur. A lot of the times you are above the ground, you are going all through different ways, and you can get a really nice view of the city. Like really nice views of the city, and it makes it more enjoyable. It really does. In Bangkok, you don't really get that. It feels a little bit more of like an anxious feeling. It's quite busy a lot of times. It's still nice, don't get me wrong, but something about it, or not being able to see, just kind of look out of the window and have this nice views of the city. I don't know. I prefer the Kuala Lumpur train system. I don't like taking the train system here as much, but I still use it to get around, and it still works really well. But that's pretty much it. I think it's a little bit more affordable in Kuala Lumpur to use on a regular basis, and it's a little bit more enjoyable for me as well. Now, something that there is in Bangkok that doesn't exist in Kuala Lumpur are the motorbike taxis. You can just use the Grab system, the same app that you have in Malaysia, and you can call for a motorbike taxi. You can get on the back of a motorbike. That is not legal in Kuala Lumpur. They don't have that. The road laws are more strict in Malaysia, period. Which means you also cannot rent a motorbike if you don't have the proper licensing. You might be able to find a place where you can, but you're setting yourself up for more risk. They're just a little bit more strict, and it's not the norm to go out riding without a license there. Whereas here in Bangkok, it's very possible, and It's not quite the same as other parts of Thailand, where like Pattaya and Phuket, some of the more popular like beach hotspot areas, and the islands, where tourists are just coming in high quantities, like all renting motorbikes and driving with no license. It's just how it goes here. Bangkok is a little bit less of that because it's a little bit more strict. You will get pulled over by police if you just drive here as a foreigner with a rented motorbike. They will at least want to check if you have your license, so you will occasionally get pulled over. But the risk really is that you pay a small fine. You know, pay a small bribe or fine, 500 baht, 1,000 baht. You know, maybe 20 to 30 US dollars. And then they give you a slip where you're good for 3 days to keep driving without any issues. And then you can get pulled over again after that. So if you're on holiday and you want a bike here, it's worth the risk almost. It's like you just kind of take this small risk of getting pulled over and paying the small fine, and it's just how it goes. Yeah, but in Malaysia, no motorbike taxis, which sucks because it's a cheap way to get around here. You know, it's a really nice way to get around here, although slightly dangerous, yeah. The Grab drivers are really good. The motorbike drivers are quite good typically, and so it's very affordable. And if you're not going somewhere that's along the train lines, it's like the best way to get from place to place. The traffic is very high in Bangkok. Compared to Kuala Lumpur, I'd say the traffic is much worse in Bangkok. You will sit in bumper-to-bumper traffic in a taxi. You know, I went from the airport to my condo, which was like supposed to be a 35-minute drive, and it was at like peak time, you know, 6 p.m., and it took around an hour and 10 minutes in a taxi. I couldn't take a motorbike because I had my luggage, so in those kind of situations, it does suck how much busier it is in Bangkok. Yeah, that's it for transportation pretty much. Okay, finally, let's talk about dating. Dating in Bangkok, Thailand versus dating in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Complete opposites. Complete difference in the two. I don't want to get too controversial here. You know, I tend to get a lot of comments that say like, oh, if you just want easy women, you know, go to Thailand. If you want an actual respectable woman, you come to Malaysia. Guys, try to avoid that. Try to avoid putting these places into too much of a closed box, as if each place is only for one thing, because that's not the case. It's not the case. However, if you do want to date women, and I'm only saying this because I have the male's perspective, who dates women. You know, sometimes I'll get comments too like, oh, don't you think there's also women traveling who want to date men? Or sure, yeah, it goes both ways, but I don't have the female's perspective. I have a male perspective because I'm a male, right? So that's what I'm going to give you. So like, if you are a single guy and you do want to go out on dates with women, if you like to meet women on any type of regular basis out in public, maybe that's in coffee shops, maybe that's in a park or something like that, or going out to a bar, going anywhere and like meeting women in kind of a romantic way, in a way where you're gonna set up a date and go out, without any like thoughts of, oh, this needs to be about marriage, or this needs to be about like finding a long-term partner, then Bangkok is the place for that. You know, Bangkok is very much lends itself to doing that. You know, it will just happen naturally and quite easily. And you might say this is just because Thai women like put, you know, white men on a pedestal. They put Westerners on a pedestal, and they see us in a different way than Malaysian women do. That's all partially true, yes. They do grow up thinking a little bit differently about us, sure. But just, yeah, in general, culturally, it's like they are more open to these kind of engagements, and they are less focused on typically like less focused on like this has to be about marriage, right? Now, unfortunately, there is a percentage of these Thai women who are really thinking about money and are really thinking about, you know, their family. Okay, how can I get money for my family? How can I get out of the situation I'm in? And a lot of Thai women do live their life with that at the forefront of their mind when it comes to dating. And so they'll see, maybe a white man, and it's like to them that's a ticket out of a difficult life. And so they might start the interaction a certain way because of this thought process, because they're thinking about that. But I don't want you to think that every single Thai woman is strictly a gold digger, because it's not the case. Especially for more casual dating. It's like, I've spent lots of time here. I'd say about half of that time having like no money. And I say the other half of the time in Thailand, I spent here having like a good amount of money to spend in like nice hotels, stuff like this. And it didn't really matter which one. Did not really determine how many women I would date, or how the women would treat me, or how they thought of me, or if they were more likely to go on a second date with me. It didn't really matter. I think if you are really genuine and like you have a good connection with the person, oh god, it's gonna rain down really hard. Oh boy. If you have a good connection with the person, they can look past, for example, you not having much money. And if you do have a lot of money, you don't need to walk around making that known. Typically, the people who have money, they like to show off a bit. They like to let the girl know that they have money because they think it's going to help them get the girl, which is not usually the way to go. That's going to attract a gold-digging type of person. But yeah, don't believe everything you see about Thai women only being gold diggers, or only caring about money, or just being like these easy and cheap women. It's not the right way to talk about somebody, to talk about a whole culture, to talk about a whole country of people. So I don't like to refer to Thailand as having cheap women the same way a lot of my subscribers do. So try to avoid that, right? But if you are comparing it with Malaysia, it is, much easier to get a woman to date you here, to get a woman to date you as a foreigner, as a tourist, as somebody who is not here for the long term. That's just the reality. Of course, they have red light districts here more prominently. It's more common here, so like that's another thing. But when it comes to Malaysia, I've had some experience dating, a lot less than in Thailand, of course. But I find, women are more so looking for a long-term relationship from the start. They're looking for a serious guy. They're looking for a guy with good values. They're looking for a guy who is not just there for a few weeks. That's just kind of how it goes with Malaysian women, period. Whether they're Muslim or not, it doesn't matter. Of course, there are a lot of like Indonesian and like mainland Chinese women as well in Malaysia, which are like culturally much more open to dating in a way like us Westerners are used to dating. And again, it's not all about like just hooking up. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about just getting like easy sex. That's not, people really confuse it, and that's why sometimes I think the way that Westerners view sex and relationships is looked at negatively by places like Malaysia and Malaysians, because they think that we're just after sex. Just because we are able to date for a short time, or have ourselves open to maybe like a 1 month mini relationship type thing with somebody when we're traveling. I don't think one thing is right or wrong. I very much understand if you are family oriented and you grow up not thinking like that, and it's fine. It's understandable. It's respectable for me. but just understand that everybody grows up differently thinking about relationships. So yeah, when it comes to finding like a long-term partner, I do think Malaysia stands out as being a good place for that. I think that because all these things I'm saying, because of Malaysian women being after a guy with good values, being after somebody who can, do good in a long-term relationship setting, I think it lends itself more to finding your long-term partner. Well, it just started raining heavily, folks, so we're staying under this dark bridge for now. Malaysia feels like a better place to find an actual long-term partner, to find your wife, right? I'd be a little bit more hesitant coming over to Thailand and meeting somebody and getting into a long-term situation. I'd be at least a little bit more weary about how this woman thinks about money and what are her long-term goals with me. Whereas in Malaysia, I would just assume that her intentions are good. And it's no knock on Thai women, but Malaysians, I would have a strong trust that this person is just after me for my personality and because they really love me. Because many guys do come over here and end up with much younger women than them, end up paying for a portion of the girl's life, whether they're actually in the country or not. They're sending the girl money, sending the woman money, and this happens regularly. Oftentimes women have multiple guys sending them money every month for their condo, for their food, for every little thing that they say that they need. It just happens so frequently, and with men that I know, and with there's many stories on YouTube and stuff about this. Like, it's such a common thing, right? Men getting taken advantage of in Thailand. And this is not a thing in Malaysia. You don't read any reports about this online in Malaysia. And so naturally, it just makes me think a little bit more trustworthy with like the Malaysian women. But you can't put everyone into one box. You know, I've also known many men who came over here and found the love of their life, and it has nothing to do with money. You know, I have guy friends who have very little money here, and their Thai wife makes more money than them. So, you know, there's a scenario for everything, right? But if you do want to go on vacation, or if you do want to relocate somewhere, and it is important for you that you can go out and meet women easily and not think too much about getting into a relationship. Maybe you don't want a relationship. Maybe you don't want kids. Then I think Thailand is better suited for you. You're going to feel a little bit empty in Malaysia looking for these things. You're not going to find it, you know. And if you are looking for a serious relationship, if you're looking to settle down and you want to start a family, then Malaysia is definitely the better option, period. That's my perspective after being in both places for a little bit of time. That's it. I think I covered everything. You know, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't take anything I said too personally or to heart. I don't want to offend anybody. It's just my experience. You know, it's my perspective. That's it. Drop a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to my channel as well. And I will see you in tomorrow's video.